Good morning, this is the Eager Beaver Show.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters, CanadianTarot.com, your uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. Well, good morning and hello, kids, and welcome to season 4 and episode number. Are we 600 yet, or is it 590?
Yeah, it's 600. I forgot to
It's
change
600. Woohoo! Of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. Do, 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 do. 100% Canadian. I am your host, the Eager Beaver, pronouns he, him, hey, Mr. Beaver, eh? As I adjust myself to, there we go, getting frame. And with me is my good friend, Mr. Grizzly. A big thank you goes to our podcast founding sponsors, the Peppermaster, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, and CanadianTarot.com. Today, recording day is Wednesday, March 12th, 2025. Looks like it's going to be a nice day here at the Beaver Lodge. The sun's coming up. I might appear a little dark. I've got the glow of a phone actually under me to light me under because I still don't have a functioning USB port to actually have the light on. But I'm hoping that as the sun comes up through the window, I will literally lighten up. Okay. It was there. I had to swing for it. Mr. Grizzly, how is your mental health today, sir?
It's not bad. Not bad. Not bad. Not great. I'm still, I'm on the other side of it. I'm just not fully on the other side of it, if that makes any sense. One foot on the side of the deck and 1 foot underwater, if that makes any sense.
Okay.
I'm not there yet, but I'm doing better. So
okay. Yeah. I feel that. As you could tell, I am particularly chipper. Because once again, yours truly had an excellent curling match. Not a 100% curling match, of course, because I think those are rather rare. But for the second time in about a week and a half, when I needed to, I sank 2 stones in, one right on the button and one like right next to it or on top of it, fully behind cover, twice for 2 extra points for our team. Like I've been doing this all my life. Just, yeah, sure, I can do that right on the button. Yeah, sure, I can do that right next on top of it. Yeah, I got it. It's like, what the heck happened to you? It's like, I don't know.
What the hell?
I know. I was like, and my Tuesday night team, we're on a little bit of a run, so we've been doing quite well. We had a rough start over the year, but at the beginning of the year, but we're doing really well. But yeah, it's like the second time in like X number, like when I did it the first time, it was like, wow, that was pretty kind of cool. But and I thought, well, yeah, when's that going to happen again? And it's like, well, gee, like 6 days later or something. And it's like yesterday. It's like, when it happened, it was like, wow, it's like I actually did do it again. And I'm like going down the other ice to the other end of the ice. It's like I'm feeling like a total stud.
Mm.
It's- and it's like, damn, that felt good. I need a cookie. So yeah, great curling match, and our team, our Monday team, also won, and we hung on by the skin of our teeth in to remain in C division. We actually had exactly tied record with the team that will be going down, but over the course of the year, we had more points by 3, so we get to stay up. So, but it was like a must-win match, and we did. So I don't know. It's like we're sort of delivering in the clutch lately. Ever since I did that curling bond spiel with that guy who was really, really good. Well, I don't know. It's like I wanted to impress. And I had a good tournament, and ever then, since then, it's like I found another level or something. It's kind of
Mm.
cool. It's kind of cool to be the one that you can depend on because I've blown enough games for my team. Let's put it that way. Oh boy, have I blown some really bad. And you know when it's you too. So
Oh
when
yeah,
you play curling, it's like, "Ugh."
I've had
Uh,
days like that playing goal where I just look at the coach and go, I don't have it today. Get me out. Get me. I
yeah,
don't have it. And
yeah.
then there's sometimes when you're on a ball hockey team, you're the only goalie. So if you don't have it, sorry, you're stuck. There's no
Yeah,
backup. You're on
right,
your own,
exactly.
and your team knows it, and you know it, and you feel terrible. It's like
Yeah,
I can't get it together today, and that happens sometimes.
yeah.
It was 10 years ago, just this past weekend, that Andrew Hammond became known as the Hamburglar, who went on a
Mm,
24
mm.
game run, 20 wins, 1 loss, and 2 overtime losses. Just 3 overtime losses, I think it was. I can't remember the exact numbers, but 20 wins in a row,
Oh, yeah.
which secured Ottawa's playoff position. Now, they did get knocked out in the first round against the Montreal Canadiens, but it was one of those things is like the team was not expected to even make the playoffs. And they didn't sneak in through the back door. They walked in through the front. And it was all because of the efforts of their backup goalie, who was pulled up from the minors and just stood
Mhm.
on his head for, the rest of the year. So, yeah, it was 10 years ago. I'm like, really? Holy shit, time flies. Do you realize it was 5 years ago yesterday that the global pandemic was declared?
Yes, yes, we were
Five
we were
years.
actually we were actually at the arena last night, and somebody mentioned that, and I think it's like tomorrow will be 5 years that everything shut down.
Yes.
It was the 13th, right, where we found out that Tom Hanks had it and the NBA shut down,
Everything just said,
and then
okay, this
everyone
is
just went,
bad.
"Woo." Yeah.
It's astonishing to think that was 5 years ago because it feels like last week.
Mhm.
But at the same time, it feels like it was 20 years ago. If
Right.
that makes any sense?
Yes, yes, because, like, COVID is not over,
No.
yes, but most of us are back to as close to similar type lives. I mean, there's still more people working at home. There are some changes that are permanent that
Yeah.
way and that type of stuff like that. But in terms of like interacting and, business activity and all that kind of
A lot
stuff,
of that is returned to something like the before times. It'll never
it's
be
never be the
exactly
same.
like that. No.
No, and
And
society itself has changed. The whole
yes.
water, the whole bathwater we're all bathing in right now while this has happened is completely different.
And you need to also remember that so many people have suffered ill psychological effects from this. Some There are some folks where it worked out for the benefit of their mental state and well-being because if you're an introvert, it was one of the greatest times of your life.
Oh, I rocked it. I rocked it so hard.
I'm not an introvert. I'm an extrovert, and I get my energy from other people. But like everybody else, there's times when I'm just like, I just don't need any people right now.
Oh yeah.
We all have those. Like I
And
gotta
same
go
thing.
home and just.
The same thing as an introvert. Like there are times I just need to be around people, and I found that out during COVID.
Oh yes, yeah. Because when you couldn't
Especially
be
when,
around people,
number one, but number two is that when you have an audience of 24
mm,
hours a day,
yeah, yeah.
it's like after a while, it's like you want to have conversations. Oh, oh yeah, you were there for that. Did I tell you? Yeah, you were there for that too. How would yeah, you're always there. I've got nothing new to tell you. It's like and yeah, like I said, I got to the point of when about like, because at first I'm thinking it's like, I was made for this.
Mm-hmm.
I was born for this, is what I thought when it happened.
Not
Like,
so much. No, not so much. Right?
well, yeah, a couple of months in, sort of like, okay, we need two things at the grocery store today. We need milk and we need tomatoes. So I'm going to go out this morning for milk.
Mm.
And although I know I'm only supposed to go out once a day, I'm going to go out later for tomatoes because I need to talk to the cash lady or somebody because
Yeah.
I just need to see face or say hello to somebody, hear a voice that's not my own or my
Well,
neighbors, or coming through headphones or through a TV or a screen, right? It's
something
like,
different. Yeah. Actual human interaction. Yeah. Well, I was lucky enough that I had they were like, stay in your bubble, stay in your bubble. And I'm like, well, I see the same group of guys, my Scotch and Cigar Club. And we would gather in my buddy's garage outdoor with the doors open, or on my buddy's first we started in the garage because it was still a little chilly out.
right.
And he had a heater, but the windows and doors, the garage door was open. Then when it warmed up, we migrated to my buddy's porch down the street, but we were all spaced out, like two people on the porch, one at each end, and the rest were in the front yard.
Yep.
Well, being a relative term because it's like 3 meters and then sidewalk and then street, but
Yeah.
we were able to sit there and we'd order wings from the pub, and we'd run low on beer. We'd order beer from the pub, and they would deliver beer and wings to us.
Yep.
So we were able to contribute to the local community and at the same time have a sense of normalcy.
Right.
It's Wednesday. We better order some wings. Just to try and remember what it was like to be in a normal state of mind. And it was a strange, strange time.
People are wonderfully creative and resourceful.
Yes. And we all came together in the beginning.
And then came the vaccine, and then people thought, okay, well, since we're all not going to die anymore, let's start positioning ourselves.
Yes, and
nobody will get vaccinated until 2035.
And yes, and then they decided to gather in Ottawa, and there's a fella on the radio here in Canada somewhere. I'm not sure it's AM 800, but I don't know where they're located. But you have to see this clip. This was sent to me earlier. It's only 1 minute. Okay. But it nails two things at the same time here. Just this. This is quite something.
First, the people at the Capitol who were protesting during COVID and the restrictions, where are they now? Where are you, so-called patriots of this land and lovers of Canada with your Canadian flags and F. Trudeau stickers when there's a real threat to the country, when there's a real concern from the United States and Donald Trump? I don't see those trucks with those flags anymore. Where are you now to go travel down to Washington to protest what's happening with Donald Trump? Where were you, everybody at the bridge, now that you love your Canada and it's under attack by Justin Trudeau and the Afro-Liberals? Where are you that you say you loved your country? You don't love anything except hating Justin Trudeau. That's what you hated. That's what you hated.
I mean, tell me
take on it. It's a take on it.
It's a fairly accurate one, if you ask me.
Well, I mean, everybody's wondering the question: who will they be now that they've lost their core identity? Because when you make your identity being the anti-someone and that someone goes away, then
yes.
Who are you?
So that's from CKLW AM 800, commercial radio station in Windsor, serving southwestern Ontario and Metro Detroit. CKLW is owned by Bell Media and has a news talk radio format. There you go. CKLW AM 800.
Well, that was Mr. Grizzly's radio voice.
I was trying to radio it up there and I stumbled.
Yes. That's okay. I'm going to remember the radio.
Okay.
That's the part I will remember. Okay, kids and cubs. Listen, yesterday we were talking about Liberal leadership, and we said that we wanted to get through the final two speeches, the one from Mark Carney and the one from the Prime Minister. We might have to cut that in two and maybe do Mr. Carney today and the Prime Minister tomorrow, depending on how the content goes, because a lot happened yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
That.
Yes.
And there was somebody that seemed to be at the center of all the action yesterday. Now, a lot of the things that happened are big things that you maybe heard of, but there's a couple of other things that happened along the way that are maybe didn't get noticed and didn't get the play that they deserved, but they are very, very meaningful. So it was a little bit of everything Doug Ford everywhere all at once.
Yeah, but
yesterday.
he didn't he back down on the electricity tariffs or
Yes
hydro?
and no. Yes and
Okay.
no. Yes and no.
Okay.
Because when the news came out,
Mhm.
because the first reaction is he better had gotten something for this because this would be a bad precedent to be sending. So yesterday, when we woke up, we knew that Doug Ford was going to slap a 25% surcharge on electricity that Ontario exports to about 1.5 million homes in the United States, and 3 states in particular, New York, Minnesota, and Michigan. And Minnesota and Michigan are particularly important and sensitive to Republicans and Donald in particular because they are swing states.
Yes.
And when you start making the voters in the swing states feel something particularly acutely, and you are spending all your time on every US TV network that will have you saying, I'm sorry, America. I don't mean to do this to you. I really don't want to do this. It's really the last thing I want to do. But it's all because of one man.
One guy.
It's all because of your president. The devil made me do it. Oops, sorry. So Doug Ford is all over, and at 10:15 in the morning round, we get this missive from Donald Trump, this screed that showed that he is completely unhinged and lost it. Not only is it going to be 25% steel and aluminum tariffs that kick in today, and they did kick in today at 12:01 a.m., but it's going to be 50% because we dared Doug Ford. Can you imagine? Well, there, since you have it up, Mr. Grizzly, why don't you read it?
All right, here we
Okay,
go.
and trigger warning for brain cells because you might lose a few listening to this.
There's a distinct possibility of that. Based on Ontario, Canada, placing a 25% tariff on, in quotes, electricity. Why did he need to put that in quotes? I don't know. Let's start that over again. Sorry.
You got
Why is
tripped up on that
electricity
too,
in
eh?
quotes? We know what electricity is. We've heard of it before. It's been around for a couple of weeks. Holy Lord!
Maybe it's the
lift the mother of
electricity that
God.
you grab from. Maybe it's the electricity you grab from the sky with your hands.
Must be, yeah. We'll try that again from the top. Based on Ontario, Canada, placing a 25% tariff on, in quotes, electricity. Is he Dr. Evil? Laser? I'm sorry, it's funny. 25% tariff on electricity coming into the United States. I have instructed my Secretary of Commerce to add an additional 25% tariff to 50% on all steel and aluminum coming into the United States from Canada, one of the highest tariffing nations anywhere in the world. This will go into effect tomorrow morning, March 12th. Also, Canada must immediately drop their anti-American farmer tariff of 250% to 390% on various U.S. dairy products, which has long been considered outrageous. I'm going to put a pause right there and a pin in that because that stupid idiot of a president signed off on that in the USMCA. He agreed to that. That was part of his greatest negotiated deal ever in 2018. That was part of it, and he signed off on it.
And the reason
those
for that
only
is
come into effect when certain limits have been hit.
yes, and the reason for that is because the United States subsidizes their farmers. We do not. We control supply. We manage supply to make sure that there is a base minimum price for the product because it doesn't get overflooded.
And they have to surpass certain required preset numbers. And those numbers are really high. I don't think those tariffs have ever actually been enabled, to be honest with you. But I don't know. I'm not a trade expert. But again, it was part of the deal that he signed, which he said was the greatest negotiated deal in history. Now, here's the thing. There's one other thing I must highlight about the USMCA. It is scheduled to be re-examined every few years, and it was scheduled to be looked at in 2026 and adjusted accordingly. So the deal isn't set in stone forever. It's as things change, as markets change, as nation states grow or shrink or whatever the case may be, you will adjust the trade deal accordingly, which makes sense. But that's not supposed to be till 2026. Right now, this guy who said it's the greatest deal ever when he signed it now hates it.
And a precision, it's not supposed to be a renegotiation in 2026. We had to renegotiation. It's supposed to be a revision of that which was renegotiated to see if there's little things that need to be adjusted here or there.
Correct. Not the entire deal.
And then, and then when that was supposed to be revised, the agreement was that would be the deal that would be in place like for a long time, like 10 or 15 years or something like that.
Exactly.
So he sees this coming in 2026. So he basically wants to impose all these things to bring us to our knees so that when we get to 2026, we're like, oh, okay, Donald, whatever you want. So what Canada is doing when Foreign Minister Mélanie Joly said, it's not true that we're going to be having this psychodrama every 30 days, is that the Canadian government is trying to force the US's hand to say, you want to renegotiate it now rather than just revise it, and you want to do it right now rather than 2026? Well, instead of doing this every 30 days, let's do that right now. Let's sit in a room. Let's get some stuff on paper. Let's say some clear markers. None of this. Well, if you do this, if you're able to guess the number that I have in my head, maybe the tariffs will go away, type of thing. But actually put something down on paper, maybe then. But what we're doing now, no, we're not having it. We're a mature country. I guess we're a mature, good faith country. So like that. So it's like you guys want to go back on your word and reopen the deal again? Fine. Well, allow that because we don't have to. We don't have to participate because we will, but we're going to do it as mature adults in a room, hammering that out, and then we're going to make a deal and stick to it. We're not going to be doing this thing.
I'll continue. I will be shortly declaring a national emergency on electricity within the threatened area. This will allow the U.S. to quickly do what has to be done to alleviate the abusive threat from Canada. It's terrible, terrible. If other egregious, do you really think he typed that word out?
No.
If other egregious long-time tariffs are not likewise dropped by Canada, I will substantially increase on April 2nd the tariffs on cars coming into the U.S., which will essentially, permanently shut down the automobile manufacturing business in Canada. I think the Auto Pact might have something to say about that. Those cars can easily be made in the USA. Also, Canada pays very little for national security, relying on the United States for military protection. Okay. Not true. I just showed you the airspace that is covered by Canada, the airspace that is covered by the United States. U.S. airspace is not covered by Canada. Canadian airspace is not covered by the U.S. and vice versa. So I don't know where he comes up with that. And let's start with another lie here. We are subsidizing Canada to the tune of more than $200 billion a year. Why? It's a trade deficit because you buy more oil from us. That is not subsidization. You buy our oil at discounted prices, by the way.
Yes.
You get it
Very
at less than market rate. This cannot continue. The only thing that makes sense is for Canada to become our cherished 51st state. Like, fuck, that's ever going to happen.
What?
But no. But no. No way are we ever going to become the 51st state. I'll explain that later. This would make all tariffs and everything else totally disappear. Canadian taxes will be very substantially reduced. That's not true. On average, the average middle income earner in Canada pays less in taxes than the United States.
And we get health care.
And we get health care. We don't pay extra for health insurance. This would make all tariffs and everything else totally disappear. Canadian taxes will be very substantially reduced. They will be more secure, militarily and otherwise, than ever before. I don't think that's actually true. There would no longer be a northern border problem, and the greatest and most powerful nation in the world will be bigger, better, and stronger than ever. And Canada will be a big part of that.
There is
The
no
artificial
northern border
line of
problem
separation
now.
drawn many years ago will finally disappear, and we will have the safest and most beautiful nation anywhere in the world. And your brilliant anthem, O Canada, will continue to play, but now representing a great and powerful state within the greatest nation that the world has ever seen. Okay. Try and swallow all of that and not vomit.
This person is, I mean, we've already established this many times ago and Trump won, but this is not normal.
Completely unhinged.
This is not. I laughed so hard. My dew came undone. I'm sorry, man. Actually, I'm not sorry. I mean, I'm just. This is not it. Claire, you can see why everybody in Canada would like to just fast forward to the moment where we're in the room. Let's just negotiate this deal, right? So Trump put that out, and then
well, in his wording here, artificial borders and one nation, that's the Kremlin's line on the Ukraine. On Ukraine. Same thing. So it should be noted that his only interest is annexing us. We don't need any of their stuff, but they should join us. Well, if you don't need any of our stuff, why would we join you? Like, the guy's talking in circles, and he's not even intelligent enough to recognize the fact that he's contradicting himself in the same sentence. We don't need them. We don't need any of their water or their lumber. We can grow our own lumber. Actually, no, you can't. You don't have the same size forests we do of the floors that we rake, right?
Yeah, and it's like 80% or 90% of our steel and aluminum exports go to the United States, and a lot of that goes into the military-industrial complex.
Correct.
But
so we'll just ship it to Europe. We'll just ship it to Europe. It's simple enough. I mean, why not? We will soon, I think, negotiate a deal with the European Union to become part of join the European Union. Like, why not? We have a land border with Denmark.
Yeah. They're certainly not against it. And I would not be surprised if at some point down the line, if the Liberals retain government after the next election, that the Prime Minister finds himself ambassador to the EU, where he can quarterback a lot of what's going on there. Wouldn't surprise me at all. So, around 10:15, Trump puts out this tweet where he is crying about, oh my God, I can't believe he would do this. So it's like, why would our country allow another country to supply us with electricity, even for a small area? Who made these decisions and why? And can you imagine Canada stooping so low as to use electricity that so affects the life of innocent people as a bargaining chip and threat? They will pay a financial price for this so big it will be read about in history books for many years to come. And then he threatened, it's not going to be 25% on steel and aluminum today. It's going to be 50%. Well, that didn't happen. So the financial price so high that they'll read about it in history books. Didn't happen as retaliation. Now, he did threaten it. And got a lot of press for that. But meanwhile, in the background, once again, the famous U.S. Commerce Secretary, Howard Lutnick.
Lutnick. Is it Nutlick or Lutnick? I think it's Nutlick. That's what I'm going to call him. Nutlick.
Call it Nutlick city limits. Sorry, a little Tina Turner there. Well, I mean, there isn't. I watched yesterday an interview with him on, I think, with people from Face the Nation or whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
He's another one of these people that talks fast and puts a lot of things together and stuff like that. But I mean, he Nutlick would not be inaccurate after watching that interview. It's like, oh my God, just like you listen to he was saying like stuff. But he was saying stuff like, the people that work the blue collar jobs and whatnot have a lower life expectancy than other people. Like that's what Donald Trump is doing. These people will be living better. Do you know how long you're gonna have to wait to see the effects of Donald? You know how long you're just gonna have to lay back and let Donald Trump be Trump with the economy until you see the average life expectancy for blue collar workers start going up statistically? How long that would take? And up in a statistically significant manner for you to say that this is actually a trend that's holding. Just lay back for the next 25 years. You'll see. It'll work. Girl.
Yeah.
Let me just climb all on top of you for the next 25 years, and you'll see what I'm promising you today will turn out. And again, we got some ocean front property on the north coast of Saskatchewan for you.
Indeed. Right next to the desert. There is a desert in Saskatchewan, though. That's true. From RMR, regarding Trump's claim Canada owes them billions, the truth is Canada is the 5th largest holder of U.S. debt through our purchase of their treasury bonds. Interestingly, and this is true, Canada filed yesterday to sell them. Oh, yeah, you didn't know about that?
Oh, no, yes. I did not.
I did read about that yesterday, and I went, you do realize if we sell those bonds, I think we have about $350 billion of their debt in U.S. bonds. If we sell them and other countries decide this is how we strike back and they start selling off their bonds, it'll crash their dollar and flatten their economy. The U.S. dollar, which is the reserve currency, right? It's the dollar that everything else is measured by. It's about to take a shit kicking. And their economy is already crashing because boycott America and Canada has spread all throughout Europe. And the entire Commonwealth, for that matter.
Oh, that's so good. How much do you want to bet Christopher Freeland is behind that?
She might have something to do with it. Apparently, Mark Carney was the guy who said, let's make this shit happen. Apparently. Now, don't quote me on that, but apparently.
Yes. But, I mean, Christopher Freeland does, say what you want about her. She does have a thing for wanting to cut down authoritarian men. Particularly authoritarian men who are not doing nice things to Ukraine. And she does understand money.
Yes. Yes, she does.
Yeah. Them two working together might change a whole lot of shit. Well, let's put it this way. If you wanted to rally the EU together with the UK and whatnot, what better than the guy who was once the Bank of England's governor and also the Bank of Canada's governor? It's almost like it's destiny that these two things are supposed to go together somehow, just fit. Along with, again, a prime minister who will soon not be prime minister, who could be given some type of diplomatic position of some kind, either as ambassador or, the head of an organization or a special envoy of some kind.
Some kind.
I mean, the current situation certainly would require a special envoy. I mean, heck, we got ourselves a fentanyl, quote unquote, czar. Watchdog.
I need to read something. This is from The Guardian. It just came in a moment ago. This is interesting. This I'm gonna read a bit of it to you, and then we'll get back to it. But this is interesting because it really kind of sums up what is taking place. Because I just said, the boycott American goods is taking place around the world right now, especially throughout Europe and the Commonwealth nations. Well, listen to this. The renowned German classical violinist Christian Tetzlaff was blunt in explaining why he and his quartet have canceled the summer tour of the U.S. Quote, there seems to be a quietness or denial about what's going on. Tetzlaff said, describing his horror at the authoritarian policies of Donald Trump and the response of U.S. elites to the country's growing democratic crisis. I feel utter anger. I cannot go on with this feeling inside. I cannot just go and play a tour of beautiful concerts. Tetzlaff is not alone in acting on his disquiet. A growing international move to boycott the U.S. is spreading from Scandinavia to Canada to the UK and beyond as consumers turn against U.S. goods. Most prominent so far has been the rejection by European car buyers of the Teslas produced by Elon Musk, now a prominent figure in Trump's administration as the head of the DOGE, a special group created by Trump that has contributed to the precipitous declines in Tesla's share price. About 15% of its value was wiped out on Monday alone. The fall in Tesla sales in Europe has been well documented, as has a Canadian consumer boycott in response to trade tariffs and Trump's calls for Canada to become America's 51st state. But the past week has seen daily reports of cultural and other forms of boycotts and disinvestment. In Canada, where the American national anthem has been booed during hockey matches, the U.S. teams, a slew of apps has emerged with names such as Buy Beaver, Maple Scan, and Is This Canadian, to allow shoppers to scan QR codes and reject U.S. produce from alcohol to pizza toppings. Figures released this week suggest the number of Canadians taking road trips to the U.S., representing the majority of Canadians who normally visit, had dropped by 23% compared to February of 2024, according to Stats Canada. While Canada and Mexico have been at the front line of Trump's trade war, the boycott movement is visible far beyond countries whose economies have been targeted. In Sweden, about 40,000 users have joined a Facebook group calling for a boycott of U.S. companies, ironically, including Facebook itself, which features alternatives to U.S. consumer products. I'll replace as many American goods as I can. If many do so, it will clearly affect the supply in stores, wrote one member of the group. In Denmark, where there has been widespread anger over Trump's threat to bring the autonomous territory of Greenland under U.S. control, the largest grocery company, the Salling Group, has said it will tag European-made goods with a black star to allow customers to choose them over products made in the U.S. We are making it easier to shop for European brands, its chief executive Anders Hag wrote on LinkedIn, although he said the company would still stock U.S. products. Well, if they've paid for them and they're on their shelves, I mean. More striking, perhaps, is the decision by companies to cut ties with the U.S. Norway's largest oil bunkering operation, the privately owned Haltback, recently announced a boycott of its occasional supply of fuel to U.S. Navy ships. Referring to the fiery meeting in the White House between Volodymyr Zelensky and Trump last month, the company posted on Facebook, "We have today been witness to the biggest shit show ever presented live on TV by the current American president and his vice president. Huge credit to the president of Ukraine restraining himself and for keeping calm, even though USA put on a backstabbing TV show. It made us sick. As a result, we have decided to immediately stop as fuel provider to American forces in Norway and their ships calling Norwegian ports. We encourage all Norwegian and Europeans to follow our example." While boycotts have been a familiar tactic in the past, targeting apartheid South Africa and the Israeli occupation of Palestinian territories, what is striking is how quickly the second Trump administration has become a target for both consumer anger and ethically minded companies. Trump this week has committed on the issue for the first time, bemoaning the impact of the Tesla customer boycott and demonstrations. This is hilarious. He wrote on social media, "To Republicans, conservative, and all great Americans." So Democrats and independents don't count. Elon Musk is putting it on the line in order to help our nation, and he is doing a fantastic job. But the radical left lunatics, as they so often do, are trying to, get this, illegally and collusively boycott Tesla, one of the world's great automakers, and Elon's baby. So when has it been
illegal to boycott
a
Tesla?
company? Illegally and collusively. Well, yeah, that's what a boycott is. Collusion.
Yeah.
That's the definition of boycott. We all get together.
But legal collusion.
Yes,
collusion. Yes, collusion.
It is collusion, yeah.
Yes.
But there's nothing illegal about boycotting anything. This is the fantasy that lives in this man's head.
Well,
Complete
again,
narcissist. Do it my way or it's wrong.
Well, it's like the other thing, right? How dare Canada stoop so low as to target electricity, something people... Dude, again, let us remind you, you punched us in the face first.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
There are 70 people at Algoma Steel that have lost their jobs already. Investment is like, you punched us in the face
What were you
first.
expecting?
It's like, how could you stoop so low? No, honey, you stooped low first. It just happened to be that your teeth got in the way when we kicked back while you were down there.
This is another one. This is from yesterday morning at 11:27 a.m. Why would our country allow another country to supply us with electricity, even for a
That's the one I just
small
read.
area? Who made these decisions and why? Jesus Christ.
Who made this? Oh, God.
I
Like,
just,
there's a reason why our trade is interconnected, and it's a lot of people made these decisions and why a long time ago because they figured it out. It was very smart people sat in a room with like calculators and stuff like that,
figured it out.
and figured out that this was the most efficient thing. I
Mhm.
mean, like, come on, man. On a side note, speaking of Greenland, they had an election yesterday, and the center-right opposition Democratic Party won a parliamentary election, and they took 29.9% of the votes following Tuesday. In the vote, and the opposition party, Nelarak Party, took, which favors rapid independence, took 24.5%. People want change. We want more business to finance our welfare, said Jens Frederik Nielsen, Democratic's leader and former minister of Industry and Minerals. That's according to Al Jazeera, and according to, I clicked the wrong one. And according to the BBC, because there were 6 parties in the running there. Like I said, that party took 30% of the vote. And again, the party leader, Jens Frederik Nielsen, is quoted as saying, Greenland needs us to stand together in a time of great interest from outside. There's a need for unity, so we will enter into negotiations with everyone. His party will have to negotiate with other parties in order to form a coalition. It has been controlled by Denmark for about 300 years, but Greenland does govern its own domestic affairs. But decisions on foreign and dependence policy are made in Copenhagen. 5 of the 6 main parties in the election favor independence from Copenhagen, but disagree over the pace with which to reach it. So they'll have to find some parties to reach 50% there to get the other 20. The Democratic Party, whose vote was up by more than 20% on 2021, is considered a moderate party on independence. Another opposition party, Nalarak, which is the one that finished second, which is looking to immediately kick off the independence process and forge closer ties with the U.S. Not sure how that was going to work, and given that the U.S.'s word is not worth much these days, was on course for second place with almost a quarter of the vote. The 2 current governing parties, Inuit Ataqatigiit, I think, and Siumut, are heading for 3rd and 4th place, marking an upset for Prime Minister Mut Igede. B. Igede, I think his last name is. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. If there's anybody from Greenland watching, because I know we are cheering each other on, please let me know if I mispronounced that.
Well, Emil still joins in occasionally when he can from Sweden. So
yes, hi Emil, if you're watching.
I don't see him today, but he does watch from time to time still, and I get every now and then I get a message from him. So just let everybody know Emil's still out there, he's still doing good. We just don't see him as much anymore.
Yeah, his working hours changed, I believe, to make it harder to join us.
Oh, well, he was off work for a while, so if he's back at work, way to go, buddy. Good for you. Good for you. Yeah. I'm going to get a coffee. I'll be right back. Sorry, I need one desperately.
No worries. So that's what's happening in Greenland as well. With Mr. Grizzly was mentioning some stuff too. Along with that, the EU this morning has also announced that it would be putting counter tariffs on U.S. goods because the steel and aluminum tariffs of 25% is not just on Canada, but it's with every country in the world that the United States does business. So according to the Financial Post, it seems that the European Union has launched countermeasures against new U.S. metal tariffs, with plans to impose its own duties on up to $26 billion worth of American goods. The announcement came hours after the U.S. administration imposed their tariffs. The EU will target politically sensitive goods in Republican-led states, including soybeans from Louisiana, home to House Speaker Mike Johnson, according to senior EU officials. So again, so now we have Canada, the EU, and China all attacking U.S. agricultural products at the same time. At some point, he's going to feel the pressure. EU metal tariffs that had been put in place during Trump's first term and later suspended are due to be reintroduced in full on April 1st, including some levies that have never previously been in force. The EU will also immediately begin consultations with member states with the aim of adopting the additional lists of agricultural and industrial goods subject to tariffs as high as 25% by mid-April. Officials said the idea is to allow a window for negotiations, which will be led by the bloc's trade chief, Maros Sefcovic. Quote, the countermeasures we take today are strong yet proportionate, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen told reporters at a briefing in Strasbourg. Quote, we firmly believe that in a world fraught with geoeconomic and political uncertainties, it is not in our common interest to burden our economies with such tariffs. While the EU announced immediately retaliatory steps, other affected countries, including the UK, refrained from immediate action and called for negotiations. And European stocks rallied on that news and were opened positively today. In the Asia Pacific, it was a mixed market open, with South Korea having the best market, doing so well, and Australia having the worst impact. And the futures for the North American markets are set to open higher today. And today around 10:30, the Bank of Canada will be announcing an interest rate decision. And over the course of the last weeks, with the stock market tumbling and the threat of increased tariffs, the likelihood that the Bank of Canada would decrease rates this time around has increased sharply. So everybody's expecting that the Bank of Canada will sort of pre-shore up the economy a little bit by giving a rate cut today. So we'll see if that happens.
So I've got some news from Reuters. Canada will announce a $29.8 billion in retaliatory tariffs on the U.S. This morning sometime. I don't know what time. It says Trump's increased tariffs on steel and aluminum imports took effect on Wednesday, which is obviously today, as prior exemptions, duty-free quotas, and product exclusions expired, and his campaign to reorder global trade norms in favor of the U.S. gains momentum. So,
yeah, which is what we promised, right? Whatever tariffs you put on us, we will put equal.
We're going to slap them back. Yeah. Goes both ways.
So yesterday, when this happened with Doug Ford, because this was a long run to get back to him, because like I said, a lot happened, right?
Mm-hmm.
You got Donald Trump going, oh my God, can't believe that Canada would do this to us. They could stoop so low. It's like, again, right? And everybody in Canada is like, have you smelled yourself? And people in the United States are starting to pay attention now, right? It wasn't on the radar at all. It is starting to get on the radar. And unlike the difference between Canada and the United States, as in Canada, we've seen this coming, we've heard the drumbeat like this, and we've all rallied together, and we've got this national thing going on. In the United States, nobody's prepared for this.
No.
And it wasn't a big topic. So they're just waking up at one point and go like, gee, why's my sheet of plywood $30 more, 30% more expensive? And it's like, well, wait a minute. Why am I having an extra? Why did my hydro bill just go up $100 a month? What? And Mexico's thinking about doing some stuff with electricity, because they supply a lot too. And it would be very shame if electricity from Mexico cut out to Texas in the summer. Just saying. So it seems Canada and Mexico are coordinating a little bit. They can't coordinate so much on products, we actually don't have that much trade with Mexico.
No.
So it's
that might change, though.
That might change. But there are other ways that we can work together. And Claudia Scheinbaum is working her own little magic down there in her own way. But it seems that one of the reasons that Donald Trump is more docile with her is that even though Mexico is more dependent on Canada than we are, so we can afford to be mouthier outwardly than she can. She is very left, and she is very much willing to do things that Donald Trump would probably find very inconvenient. So he's being way nicer. But for all the nicer he's being in terms of rhetoric, it's still the same end result. The exact same tariffs that have been imposed on them have been imposed on us. So we're not losing the thing from being a little mouthy.
No.
So Doug Ford, while all this is going on and Donald Trump is saying, extra tariffs and whatnot, the U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick's on the phone again. Come on, man, you got to calm that down. You got Peter Navarro, that shriveled up old raising them. This thing from Canada. Oh my God! It's like they got to stop that. It's like how dare they? It's like it's like we just want to stop people from dying from fentanyl. It's like, well, I'm sorry, honey, but Canada is not responsible for all fentanyl deaths in the United States stopping before you eliminate the tariffs. I mean, some of that is homegrown. Some of that is your own domestic demand and supply too, right?
You know what they've been catching at the border lately? In huge amounts that they're trying to sneak back into the United States. It's not fentanyl. It's not guns.
Nope.
It's eggs. I'm not kidding. I read about this yesterday. I'm like, oh, that's believable.
They're smuggling eggs now.
It's ironic and a little bit funny.
Yep.
They're smuggling eggs.
Yep, indeed.
I thought Trump was supposed to reduce the price of eggs on day one.
I keep on
stop
saying,
the war
man,
in Ukraine.
I keep on saying, in a country like the United States, make eggs very expensive. Take away the nation's supply of nice, cakey snacks. And see how long you let them not eat cake before they revolt. I'm just saying, if cake makes everything better and you can't afford eggs, which means you can't make yourself a cake, in these times where you want to sit down with an entire sheet cake and just snarf it down all at once, because who the fuck cares about calories? The world's about to end. You might be a little angry if you can't buy eggs to have this nice fluffy delight. Okay. So we have Doug Ford. He's going all over the media. He's blaming this guy. And you got Howard Lutnick calling on the phone. It's like, God, come on, guys. Like this. And if you listen to Howard Lutnick tell it, you listen to Doug Ford tell it, you're going to get two different versions of the story, right? It's like Donald Trump said, like, we can't have that. You got to get those things taken off, Howard. So I called that Doug Ford guy like this, and I got those things taken off. It's like, yeah, but you also are not going to charge 50% steel tariffs now, right? You're back down to, so we're back to where everything was that morning, except for the suspension of the 25% on electricity, which Doug Ford did do, because Doug Ford managed to get himself a meeting in person with Mr. Lutnick, at which Finance Minister Dominic LeBlanc will be, and Doug Ford will be having a meeting with Prime Minister-designate Mark Carney before he goes on that trip.
Yeah.
And it looks like they are going to be discussing maybe something with moving up the U.S. MCA or NAFTA 2 or USMAC or CUSMA negotiations, which is exactly what Canada wants. So we are very happy to take off the 25% electricity surcharge for the moment until that meeting happens and we see what happens as a result of that meeting, whether or not we have a course forward that makes sense or not. Your move, Donald. And then Donald had some interesting words for Doug Ford after that meeting. Now, Mr. Grizzly, if you happen to have some clips.
I do. Just bear with me for a sec because I've got a lot of stuff here on my desktop that I'm trying to sort through.
No worries. I've got content here while you're looking for that. Okay, so we are going to start, I believe, with Doug Ford is the first one. And this is a press conference that he gave yesterday.
Okay, I've got it.
All right.
It's 58 seconds is the clip.
Oh, the first clip. Okay, yeah, that might be something. Yeah, play that one
All right,
because that was a lead-in thing, I believe.
here we go.
That ship energy down to the U.S. and we have to maximize it. And then we have to remember the 4.3 million barrels of oil that's coming from Alberta. As Premier Smith said on her comments, I think over the last couple of days, she has the trump card. Well, a message to Premier Smith, one day I think you might have to use that trump card and give approval for an export tax. Because you want to talk about a trump card, that will instantly change the game. Instantly, when the Americans, and I know the Americans, all of a sudden their gas prices go up 90 to $1 a gallon, they will lose their minds. So we need to at least put that in the window, but I don't direct any of the premiers, I don't direct any of the provinces, it's Team Canada, and that's going to be strictly up to...
Do you get the feeling that he does not care for Daniel Smith?
He doesn't.
Like, I really get that vibe. He does not like her.
He does not like her.
And look, I know he's playing Team Canada, but you know he so desperately wants to be a Republican. You know
yes.
He wants to kiss the ring.
Yeah, but I think the other type.
Yes. Yeah.
The Mitch McConnell type Republican,
Yes.
not the what's going on now. So this wasn't actually the thing. Sorry, I got that was my bad. But this is something else. What we're going when I said Doug Ford, everything all at once. So we'll do this part. During that press conference, Doug
Oh,
Ford.
you mean the one? Okay, I got it. I got it.
Yeah, sorry. I went to the wrong one. I needed block 3, but I didn't precise. I didn't. That's my bad. I didn't tell you the right thing. In that press conference, this is the thing that we've been talking about before, right? Where Doug Ford is willing to put electricity on the table. So, Alberta, are you willing to put oil on the table? Now, this is easier for Doug Ford to do because electricity exports represent about like 1 to 1.5 of the entire economy. So we don't have that much to lose. It's not as much as oil, right? It's not as much as electricity from BC as well, because they've been considering it, and it's a little more complicated there. But, and when it comes to steel and aluminum, François Legault from Quebec has already said that even though that's one of their core industries, he's willing to have the counter tariffs on it. So this is a thing to corner her a little bit. Now, Mr. Grizzly, if you have the one that was immediately under it,
it's 15 minutes.
No. When you the clip that you just showed.
Okay.
Like this, there was a link immediately under it. It's an X link.
Just a minute.
A Twitter link.
You sent me a shit ton of links.
Yes, I know that. I know that. The second one under block 2.
Yeah, this is the one where he's on. What is he on? MSNBC.
No. Block 2. The second link. It's an X. It's a Twitter link.
Just a minute. Yeah, that's what it is. That's exactly what it is. What I just said.
It
starts with a tweet from you in response to Morgan Cameron, and then it goes down. It's got Clinton, and it's got the clip. No, there's nothing to do with Daniel Smith in block 2.
Okay, the next one then, the one below that one.
1 second here, and that was the clip we just looked at a minute ago.
Okay. Jeez. I did such hard work to make sure I had these things.
And the next one is the 15-minute video clip.
Okay, well, leave that one up, then we'll be going to that one. I'm surprised it didn't work.
Did you want this one where he talks about Mark Carney?
Yeah, but here, I found the one that I'm looking for here. So Daniel Smith responded to Doug Ford. Don't worry about it.
No, okay.
Don't worry about it. I got this one. Daniel Smith responded to Doug Ford, and it didn't take her long to do it as well. Courtney Theriault, who's a reporter, I believe, with the City Group, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe he left the City recently. Yes, so he's he now hosts the Courtney Theriault show on CHED. But
6:30.
yes, tweeted, Premier Daniel Smith responds to Doug Ford's comments on putting on export tax on Alberta energy, calling it an absurd and self-destructive idea, saying it's not an option. Quote, today, Premier Doug Ford said one day Alberta might have to give approval for a federal tax on oil and gas headed from Alberta to the United States. I understand our new Prime Minister, Mark Carney, has mused about the same thing. Let me be clear. Alberta will never agree to such an absurd and self-destructive idea. It's not an option. I'm not going to agree to do something that will cost hundreds of thousands of Albertans and Canadians their jobs almost overnight. That would be like placing export tariffs on Ontario auto parts. Also a bad idea. There are many effective ways that Canada and Alberta can work together to pressure the U.S. president to change course on tariffs. That is not one of them, period. Yeah, and what would those ways be, Danielle? Because you've been freelancing for the last 5 weeks and nothing you have done has worked for you. Boo-boo kitty.
Clearly.
So Daniel Smith has made it very, very, very clear that it is never, ever, ever going to be an option, no matter what it is Donald Trump does to us. So she is saying, hey, if you are going into a war with this guy, you need to go with your biggest weapon, your hand tied behind your back. I will not permit it. Now, first of all, it's a shame, Danielle, that that's not up to you. Number one, you don't get to decide whether or not there are export tariffs.
You don't.
So, number one, we will accept it. There's no, so in other words, everybody has to sacrifice first. Everybody else has to lose hundreds of jobs overnight or thousands of jobs overnight, but not you. Not you, Alberta special. Alberta doesn't have to contribute at all. Alberta doesn't have to take any pain. Everybody has been talking about from the beginning, even Doug Ford. There's going to be some pain, and we have to spread it out so that it's not all one industry and not all one province. But everybody's going to have to take some, and you do not want to take your share. So Daniel Smith and Doug Ford. Doug Ford just hip-checked Daniel Smith into the boards. And Daniel Smith did what Daniel Smith does. So Daniel Smith has just told Canada by reacting this way that she is serving at least two masters. One of them is not us. That's disturbing, and that is unacceptable. And when you consider everything else that's going around her administration, you would think that the one thing she would want to do is try to earn some brownie points, but she can't even do that. There's something up with her.
Well, and she's on her way to Prager University to have appear in a podcast with Ben Shapiro. You got to remember, Prager U is very problematic. Their videos that they put out on their website and their YouTube channel many of them have been taken down by YouTube because they contain misleading or inaccurate claims about topics such as slavery and racism, immigration, and the history of fascism. They've been accused of promoting fascism, racism, sexism, and anti-LGBTQ2+A politics. And this is where Alberta taxpayers' dollars are going.
Yes, because they're paying for her to go. Now, of course, she's trying to justify that as some I don't know what, but no. There are certain places you do not support with your dollar and your presence.
Well, and here's the thing, despite
Especially
the
your
significant
physical
sound
presence.
of its name, Prager U is not a university. It's a content creator.
Yeah.
The conservative media nonprofit makes short, well-produced videos crafted to appeal to college students and young people. It has polished animations and titles like What Radical Islam and the Woke Have in Common? Is There Really a Climate Emergency? Recently, news headlines have focused on its Prager U kids content. It's after Dennis Prager. He calls it Prager University, but they produce these videos to get into schools. They want them as part of the curriculum. But I think there's one video where they denied the existence of dinosaurs. Because according to them, the world is only 6,000 years old. They're going to tell us it's flat next, and that Hitler wasn't a Nazi and he didn't do bad things. Are they going to tell us that next?
Oh, my God.
So Danielle Smith is going to appear on a PragerU video podcast with Ben Shapiro. Ben Shapiro, the same piece of shit human being who said that Derek Chauvin should be released from prison because he didn't murder George Floyd after we saw him do it. Yeah, that's where your tax dollars are going, Alberta. How do you feel about that? Because I feel pretty angry about it.
Yep. Feeling had yet? All right.
As I am.
Yeah, indeed. So, just to be clear, conservative mom and conservative dad are fighting.
Yes.
Fight. 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 Like, you got to remember, the entire context, right, is the conservative brand falling apart. You got Trump burning it to the ground of the United States. You got the free fall of Poilièvre on the federal level. There's RCMP investigation just opened up in Daniel Smith's administration. And there's still one quietly running in the background in Ontario.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of bad press.
Very much so.
All at once. So, yeah. Danielle Smith might have some explaining to do at some point to certain people why it is that she is categorically, under no circumstance whatsoever, willing to put oil on the table. And for whose benefit is that really?
Indeed.
To ask. So, but conservative mom and conservative. Benefit. Yes, but conservative mom and conservative dad are fighting, and this won't be the last because, oh, hell hath no fury like a Danielle scorned.
Boy, oh boy.
Now, the long clip, the 15-1, this is Doug Ford talking a little bit about what went on yesterday. I think this probably would have been after he had the call with Lutnick. Sorry, I keep on doing that.
That's okay. It's fine. Believe me, it's fine.
It happens.
I mean...
Well, just a little while ago, I had an opportunity to speak to Secretary Lutnick. And Secretary Lutnick has sent out an olive branch to us to come down and immediately meet with him, meet with the whole trade administration, and discuss the future. Rather than waiting till April the 2nd, threats going back and forth, tit for tat, I've agreed to suspend temporarily, and we always have that tool in our toolkit, until we sit down over the next day or two. I'll be heading down to Washington along with Dominic LeBlanc, and we'll have a good discussion. You know, with any negotiation that we have, there's a point that both parties are heated and the temperature needs to come down. And I thought this was the right decision. They understand how serious we are about the electricity and the tariffs. And rather than going back and forth and having threats to each other, we have both agreed, let cooler heads prevail. We need to sit down and move this forward. This is a massive, massive deal, the USMCA, which the federal government will be leading the charge. I'll be sitting down with all our premiers tomorrow as well and discussing this and their issues as well. So we're going to go down there and we're going to go down there with confidence. We're going to go down there with strength. And again, hopefully we can move this forward. I feel as a province, and I only speak for the province of Ontario, I want to reaffirm I do not speak for any other premiers. Everyone's very patriotic, and we have the best premiers I've ever seen. But we're going to be talking about the USMCA moving forward. The worst thing that could happen is wait and let this drag out until April the 2nd. So we're going to move forward and have a very good conversation with Secretary Lutnick and the whole trade team, as he said, and hopefully we can move this forward, because it doesn't benefit anyone, as I told him, no matter if it's the auto sector or any other sector here in Canada and specifically Ontario. And all I mentioned, assembly lines will shut down in the U.S. and Canada. The stock market is tumbling over $4 trillion. Consumer confidence has went down. I said it's absolute chaos out there right now. We need to move forward jointly. I emphasized how Canadians love Americans, and I know Americans love Canadians, but going back and forth with each other, it just hurts both countries. So I want to thank Secretary Lutnick for reaching out, putting that olive branch, and I've been in business a number of years, a lot of negotiations, and part of the last negotiation, when someone does that, you have to respect that person for putting out that olive branch, and I'm going to make sure we go down there and have a very good but strong and confident conversation.
So is Mr. Lutnick then are they going to hold off on their steel and aluminum tariffs? Is that your understanding? What's the olive branch other than the invitation to DC?
Well, he has to bounce it off the president, but I'm pretty confident he will pull back. And I'm not speaking for them. I'm not speaking for the president. But if he continues with the aluminum and the steel, I just got off the phone with Minister LeBlanc. They will respond dollar for dollar, tariff for tariff. And again, Minister LeBlanc will be joining me, and hopefully Ambassador Hillman, if she's free, will join me as well. But we'll have a strong delegation. But every negotiation starts sitting at the table. And when someone invites you to their home, said, let's sit down at the table, I'm not going to refuse that.
Premier, you're meeting with Prime Minister Designate Carney tomorrow.
Yes, I am.
What is he part of this discussion as well? Could you just fill us in on your meeting tomorrow and what's up with that?
Dominic LeBlanc is informing the new Prime Minister, elect Prime Minister Carney, and he'll have a conversation with the Prime Minister.
Premier, the White House Press Secretary mentioned you specifically, said the surcharge was egregious. What did you make of that? And is that factoring into your decision to pull back here?
No, it's not. But in negotiations, you can't keep ratcheting it up on both sides, because the only people that get hurt, Richard, are the Canadian population, Ontario in specific, to be specific, and the American people. I had a conversation with all three governors, Governor Walz just a little while ago, about a week or so ago, but I did speak to Governor Whitmer over the weekend. I spoke to her again this morning, and also Governor Hochul as well.
Trump directly when you head down to Washington?
I'm not too sure. All I know is I'm meeting with the Secretary Lutnick, and his entire team down there as well. And again, by no means are we just going to roll over, because we don't roll over to anyone. What we are going to do is have a constructive conversation moving forward. As I reminded the Secretary, we're the closest allies, closest friends, and we need to get back to the table to make sure that we build an AMCAN fortress around the world. I told him we are not the problem, China's the problem, and we look forward to speaking with Secretary Lutnick. I'm sorry.
You moved on electricity.
Yes.
Did you have the okay from the feds, or was this you kind of going on your own?
Well, I think I've been pretty transparent with the federal government and everyone else. I've been mentioning it for probably the last 3 or 4 weeks, and then we had to make a move. Did it catch their attention? That's an understatement. They caught their attention. But I'm not out, and I've said it publicly, I'm not out to hurt the American people. I told the governors I'm not out to hurt them. I apologize that we have to even do this. We have to get to this point. But sometimes you have to play your cards, and this is one of the cards that we played. And hopefully We're going to have a very good, constructive conversation with the Secretary when we get down there. But my goal in any discussion, any negotiation, be it here or in business or in the last agreement that we had, is let's cool everyone down. Cooler heads have to prevail, and we need to sit down and have a very productive conversation. And I truly feel it was the right decision to move forward and bring Minister LeBlanc down, along with the ambassador. If she's free, I have to reach out to her. This has been moving at rocket speed right now, going back and forth, and we had to make a decision. So I made that decision.
What else would she be doing on this file?
Well, I'm just saying, I have to reach out to her. This is going extremely fast. My number one priority was to talk to the people of Ontario, and I have to reach out to the ambassador. But she's done an incredible job, by the way. I want to thank Ambassador Hillman for all the work she's been doing behind the scenes as well.
Can you say what called who today?
Yes, Secretary Lutnick called me.
Was it because do you think that the CNN push, CNBC, MSNBC, you've been doing a big media blitz on American channels?
Yeah.
Clearly, Secretary Lutnick is noticing that. Do you think that is this vindicating your aggressive, hawkish kind of strategy rather than trying to be an appeaser like some other premiers?
Well, first of all, thank you for that question, Robert. What I'm doing the American media for is to inform the American people. You know, I saw a poll that came out the other day, just recently. It's 67% of Americans disagree with President Trump attacking Canada. So the more all of us, all premiers, all CEOs of businesses go out there and inform the American people. This isn't just going to hurt Canada, and it will hurt Canada and Ontario. It's going to hurt the U.S., and it's going to hurt badly. We're already seeing inflation go up in the U.S., and that's not going to be good. I'll tell you, I know the Americans fairly well. They're loving, caring people, and as soon as costs start going up, inflation, plants start shutting down, you can't attack your number one customer, Canada, and not expect a response. And we responded, and they came back, and I'm a business person. I want to sit down and negotiate this and stop the bleeding. As we're going at each other, China's sitting back laughing, building their critical mineral arsenal, and the words Chinese president said the other day should be concerning for the whole world when he said we aren't ready just for an economic war, any type of war. That's concerning, to say the least.
Are you concerned? Last question. Do you think the president was watching?
Are you concerned that suspending the surcharge that you've put on electricity will be considered a win by Trump?
No, I wouldn't call it a win whatsoever, because we still have it in our toolkit that we can use at any given time. Again, I mentioned to the governors, I apologize, we have to go to this extent. But remember, folks, we never started this war. President Trump started this economic war against Canada. It was unprovoked. I truly believed that we'd move forward and it would grow both economies, would create more jobs, more economic prosperity. Well, this has gone the other way. The economy right now, I'm concerned about it. And if a recession does happen, it's a self-made recession by one person and one person only. So I just want to move forward. I'm asking for the people of Ontario and Canada's support. I want to thank them for the thousands of messages I'm getting, even people that disagree with me. As some people say, I disagree with you 99%, but you're doing a great job. Keep going. I need everyone's support as Team Canada as we move forward, because these negotiations are going to be the toughest we've ever.
I need to interrupt there for a second. You got to listen carefully to what he just said a moment ago. Mm-hmm. That was fascinating. Mm-hmm. I've never heard him say anything like that. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm going to replay that because I was like, wow. I don't know if I've gone back far enough, but let's have a listen again.
By one person and one person only. So I just want to move forward. I'm asking for the people of Ontario and Canada's support. I want to thank them for the thousands of messages I'm getting, even people that disagree with me. As some people say, I disagree with you 99%, but you're doing a great job. Keep going.
There it is. I disagree with you 99%, but you're doing a great job. Keep going. That was fascinating to hear come from him.
Mm-hmm.
I'm.
That's what I told you. Every now and then, there's a couple of interviews I see every now and then. It's like, where's this Doug Ford been all along?
Like he's in touch with reality. What?
Uh-huh.
The fact that he said that is mind-blowing to me.
Right?
I had to watch it twice because I'm like, he actually said that.
Yeah, he did.
We'll continue.
I need everyone's support as Team Canada as we move forward, because these negotiations are going to be the toughest we've ever had.
Thank you.
Yes.
All right. We could cut there. So
that was wow. I'm still shocked about that.
Yeah. In the other interview I saw that I didn't show any clips of, but I said that, wow, this is the first time I've seen Doug Ford be mature and adult. He actually admitted in that interview with regard to Donald Trump and wanting him to win that he got that wrong.
Oh, wow.
A mistake.
What's going on? What's
Yeah,
going on?
I'll find that one again and I'll bring that clip to you, because when I saw that too, it was like, whoa, not in today's show, but like tomorrow's show or whatever. But yeah, it was like, whoa. And you will hear, like, even in that clip, like you heard there, even as there was still a little though like this, but a lot calmer and as lower register, and not as excited, not as folks, and not as
in touch with reality for the first time ever. I think maybe.
Yeah, he is still potentially the most corrupt premier in Ontario history.
Well, like you just said, I get message from people say, I'm 99% disagree with everything you're doing, but keep going on this one.
Yes. But as Christian said in his speech, right, as an old guy to an old guy, from wannabe Republican mob boss to wannabe Republican mob boss.
Yeah.
Cut it out with this nonsense. I allegedly, but they both give up that vibe, right? So, except that Doug Ford is bitter at speaking in complete sentences.
I'm floored by that. I never.
Now remember, the bar is Trump.
Yeah,
right. So
pretty low bar.
but right. I mean, I don't know. I guess if it is true indeed that Doug Ford truly is on board with Canada, and this just offended his sensibilities as a Canadian so deeply that then, more power to him on that front, because it doesn't forgive or wash away or delete the rest of the stuff. But if this happens to be a time where having a lovable thug in a position of power can help protect the family, I'm not against playing dirty. But still no cookie for the rest of the stuff.
No.
I'm being a pragmatist. I can see the temporary advantage,
of course,
of having a lovable thug as a premier. But I'm not. In no other way am I cheering for this. Hey, who knows?
No.
If this change helps him do other stuff, like realizing, hey, maybe it is not such a good idea to privatize that much healthcare anymore, or something like that. He decides to zigzag another way. I'll be all for it. But if this is a beginning of a Doug Ford actually does have another act and another layer, even though I'm never ever going to forgive all that other stuff.
No.
As a human being, I am very curious to see what that other layer is like.
Well, and look,
I'm
let's
fascinated.
we have to look at this from a different standpoint because we're under attack, right?
Mhm.
There's no
And you have
denying
to,
that we
and
are
you have
under
to
attack.
ally with people you don't agree.
We have to unite as one nation to fight back. Look, our friend Alex in Ukraine has said prior to the invasion, prior to the war, he did not support Zelensky. He said, matter of fact, I campaigned against him. He said, I voted for him. And then when he got into power, I didn't like some of the policies he enacted, and I was very much against him. He says, but now I am 100% behind him because our country is at war. We've been attacked. You have to support the people leading you in times of crisis,
Mm-hmm.
especially when the people leading you are actually fighting for you.
Mm-hmm.
And Doug is doing that right now.
Mm-hmm.
For how long? Well, it remains to be seen.
Yeah.
But he's shown some humility, I think, maybe for the first time in his entire life, by admitting 99% disagree with you, but keep going on this one. That's astonishing. That might have been his come to reality moment.
Mm-hmm. Might have been. Now, so we got Doug Ford somehow maneuvering himself into a meeting with the U.S. Commerce Secretary and the Minister of Finance, and finding time to have a meeting with Mark Carney before going to do that, and getting Donald Trump to not put the extra 25% tariff. And I don't think I have a clip of it, but Donald Trump, after all of this, at the end of the day, being asked something like, "Do you think that this might make you go like not full 25% on Canada?" And there was like some openness to that, and called Doug Ford strong and a gentleman, saying that he appreciated the call. Now, whether or not he'll remember that tomorrow. Did I say that? But it is on camera. It is on film. So what Doug Ford was saying in that interview, that might have a lot of people rolling some eyes. Because, well, I thought it got a little too hot. We got to like cool it down. And I thought this was a good opportunity to do it. Donald just said Doug Ford was strong and a gentleman, and he appreciated the call. This, however, was after Doug Ford slapping on the 25% surcharge, getting the call from Lutnick saying, "Hey, you got to cool this down," going all over American TV saying, "Hell no, he ain't taking those things off. These things stay." Then getting that phone call, then getting that meeting, then getting the extra 25 that Trump was going to put on lifted, and then having Trump call him strong and a gentleman. Not bad for a day's work. Not bad for a day's work. Gotta give it. I guess Daniel Smith gets a little cornered. And then there was one other thing that happened yesterday that was just a thing of beauty. And that's the first one you had up there, Mr. Grizzly, the one that was just 59 seconds in block 2, the first one, x.com, I won't say our friend Clinton DeVoe, because we have not talked to him yet. But he sends us stuff. I have not. Okay. Well, I haven't. I don't think I've had an interaction yet. I think.
Yeah, I've been talking to Clinton for a while, a couple of years now, actually.
Oh,
He's
okay.
a fan of the show. He joins when he can. But yeah, I've talked to Clinton many times. There was one day he had texted me while we were on the show. We were doing the show, and he was at the Elgin Street Diner. He says, "Come on over and join me." I'm like, "We're still broadcasting." He's like, "Oh shit, sorry."
No,
but here's the clip yesterday from Clinton that he posted, and I think it's rather poignant.
Yes.
And prescient.
Watch what happens.
You guys are going.
Well, I'm getting a. There we go. Okay, that should work better. Apologies. I've got lots of stuff here in the background, and I've got running out of resources.
You guys are going through a transition in leadership as well. You're about to have a new prime minister, Mark Carney. Yes. Have you spoken to him since he won, and where do you expect him to take this fight?
Well, I spoke to him yesterday. He's a very bright individual. He understands finances like no other person. And we need to sit down, which we will tomorrow. We're going to have breakfast tomorrow morning, and we'll have a...
That sound you heard. That sound you heard was Pierre Poilièvre and Jenny Byrne throwing ketchup against the wall and screaming.
Yeah.
Doug Ford went on US TV and said, was that an endorsement of Mark Carney?
I think he would say that.
He would say that, prior to an election. Did Doug Ford just deliver Ontario to Mark Carney right under Pierre Poilièvre's nose? Fight.
You need to remember this, and this is key, that during the height of the pandemic, when the whole world shut down, Doug Ford came out and praised the Prime Minister.
He did.
And he worked directly with him, hand in hand. They had a good working relationship.
Oh, yeah. And after it was all over, when the federal court decision came down, Doug Ford said he agreed with the Prime Minister's decision.
Right.
Regardless.
So it's like they had a good working relationship. You know what my feelings on Doug Ford are, but he had a good working relationship with the Prime Minister. He does not like Pierre Poilièvre, and he wants his job. Mm-hmm. So praising Mark Carney is a way to let him know, I'm gunning for you.
Kids and cubs, your Royale with cheese, Queen Beaver, hereby declares the great 2025 Canadian Conservative Movement Civil War open. Doug Ford's checking Daniel Smith into the boards and sabotaging Pierre Poilièvre by endorsing Mark Carney. And on day 2.
Yeah. Crazy, right?
Did you see that? I did not have that on my bingo card.
No, nor did I. Nor did I. But I love how he says, look, he's one of the smartest guys you're ever going to come across when it comes to economics and financial policy. And he's right.
But so casually. He just casually shivved Poilièvre.
Yeah.
I almost want to cry. It's a thing of beauty.
I mean, he
was artful.
He was a hash dealer. He knows how to get dirty in the street.
It was artful, though.
Oh, yes.
It's like he killed Poilièvre with the truth.
Yeah, that's kind of funny.
Agape, agog. I don't... Listen, Santa Beaver, thank you. But, oh yeah. And we got some other news. Mr. Grizzly, in the links that I sent you, block 1, the bottom one, Polara Nanos. There's more polling data that has come in. Nanos polling has the Conservative lead at 1 over the Liberals. So that's a statistical tie, which means given the overabundance of Conservative vote in Alberta and Saskatchewan, means a Liberal victory. And then there's this from Polara.
Now, Mark Carney did win the Liberal leadership in a landslide yesterday, walking away with nearly 86% of the available points to secure the top job. And today, the polling firm Poilièvre has a new survey out, one that says Carney has a big lead over Pierre Poilièvre as the best federal leader to take on Donald Trump. Dan Arnold is a former pollster for the last 3 Liberal campaigns, these days Chief Strategy Officer at Poilièvre. Dan, good to see you again.
Happy to be here.
So, we know that Mark Carney, the mere mention of his name
I'm sorry, he said happy to be here, but what I heard was have a beer. So, go back and listen to that. That's what it sounded like. Have a beer. Or maybe I just want a beer. I don't know. It's really early in the morning.
3 Liberal campaigns, these days Chief Strategy Officer at Poilièvre. Dan, good to see you again.
Happy to be here.
So, we know that Mark Carney, the mere mention of his name has lifted Liberal numbers when it comes to the polls. But you've actually done, you and Poilièvre have actually done a head-to-head comparison of Mark Carney and Pierre Poilièvre. And when it comes to competency, what are you finding here?
Yeah, so we tested about 20 different attributes comparing Carney to Poilièvre, how Canadians feel different terms describe them. And yeah, the things where Carney has the biggest advantage are on things that are very managerial. It's on competency. He's got a 14-point lead, can handle difficult situations. He's got a 13-point lead, managing the economy. 18-point lead. So the things that you would expect, a banker to be good at. It's kind of, in politics, it's the first impression, it's the job description, it's how you look. And he kind of looks like somebody who is competent, who has his act together. And I think that's where a lot of the appeal for him is coming from right now with Canadians. They think they want a serious person at this time, and he looks like a serious person.
Okay, serious person, in large part due to Donald Trump, which, you speak to people, that is what they believe the ballot question is going to be. Do you believe Trump is the ballot question? And when it comes to Carney, what have you found vis-a-vis Trump?
Yeah, I think it feels like Trump is the ballot question. And maybe Trump will become a wallflower for the next 2 months and disappear. That seems unlikely. So I'm assuming that Trump is going to be in the news. And it seems like that's all Canadians are paying attention to right now. And, it comes down to kind of who they want in charge to deal with the Trump fallout. On the same just kind of head-to-head, right now we've got Carney with a 14-point lead in terms of who Canadians feel between Carney and Poilièvre. They trust to deal with Trump. But part of that is because, I think there's some unease about whether or not Poilièvre would actually go along with Trump or stand up to him. We asked a separate question about, for each of these leaders, do you think they would do what Trump wants, or do you think they would stand up to Trump? For Carney, you've got 44% say they think he'd stand up to Trump. Only 70% say they think he'd go along with Trump. So more than twice as many say stand up to Trump. For Poilièvre, it's flipped. You have more people who say he's just going to do what Trump wants as opposed to he'll stand up to him. So yeah, Poilièvre's got a big Trump problem right now. And when the ballot question was cost of living was changed a year ago, everything was working for Pierre Poilièvre. But now that the board has been shaken up by Donald Trump and the ballot question has changed, he's obviously scrambling and trying to figure out how he fits into this new game board that they're playing on.
Yeah, although what's interesting about Carney, and no news to anybody, yes, people might know him as the Bank of Canada governor, but he has no track record as a politician. He hasn't really been tested as a politician. And I think what's telling, even though people believe he would push back more against Trump than would a Poilièvre, and that's what your study has found, there's still a large chunk of Canadians that still don't know and ask that question about Carney. How much of that is a potential pitfall for the leader and the Liberal Party?
Yeah, that's the big wild card for the election, right? People love the idea of Mark Carney right now. I don't think they know a lot about Mark Carney. We asked in the survey, do you know a couple things about these politicians? You've got under half of Canadians right now who say they know a couple things about Mark Carney. So that's the majority of Canadians. Maybe they know his name, they know his former job title. That's about it. So, in an election campaign, when there's attack ads and there's, controversy swirling and debates, and people will get to know a lot more about him. And if the idea of Mark Carney that they have in their heads right now is what they see on the campaign trail, I think that lines up very good for him and good for the Liberal Party. But if what they see on the campaign trail is very different from this idea they have in their head, if he doesn't kind of live up to the hype, those numbers could change very quickly. When you have an untested politician, there's a potential for a great result. There's also potential for things to really go south quickly in a campaign.
Yeah, and as you say, that is the wild card here. Although I do want to ask about, Pierre Poilièvre, because these head-to-head comparisons, we're talking about the areas where Mark Carney has actually come up ahead of the Conservative leader. Where has the Conservative leader, in any area, I wonder, has come ahead of the Liberal leader?
So there's not a lot of areas right now where Poilièvre, or really any areas where Poilièvre is ahead of Carney. Where there is basically a tie is on things that are more about kind of relatability and connecting with voters. So do they understand what I'm going through, cares about people like me? And again, like Carney, the image people have of him is probably as this like, banker guy. Does he understand what my life is like? Does he understand what I'm going through? I think that's a bit of a wild card right now. People don't necessarily know that. For Poilièvre, certainly on something like getting rid of the carbon tax, they believe he's going to do that. But I think both of them need to kind of do a bit more in terms of connecting with voters and showing they understand what voters are going through. And that's maybe an area where there's some opportunities for Poilièvre, just because Carney's not as, seen as strong in those areas.
Mm-hmm. Now, to be fair, you and I are having this conversation as if it's a two-horse race, between Liberal and Conservatives. Are we discounting, are Canadians discounting the Bloc and the NDP too soon?
Yeah, based on polling right now, they seem to have drifted into kind of the background of this discussion, and I think that's the big challenge Jagmeet Singh has right now, is that the conversation for the past month has been Trump, and then therefore Poilièvre and Carney, how they're reacting to Trump. And the risk for certainly the NDP and maybe even the Bloc to some extent is that this kind of becomes a two-person race, and that's the battle that everyone pays attention to, and they become a bit of an afterthought in the campaign. That said, again, when we're talking about areas where Carney's weaker, like understands what people are going through, cares about me, those are traditional NDP strengths. So maybe if Carney looks a little stiff and doesn't get what regular people are going through in a campaign, maybe that's something the NDP can kind of find some space to get in on and get some momentum on. But right now, based on all the polls that are out there, the NDP is getting squeezed right now.
Okay. Dan Arnold, thank you.
I still think he said have a beer. Now, I know he said happy to be here, but when he said it the first time, I was like, have a beer.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, what do you think of that polling data, Mr. Grizzly?
Actually, what I expected. Accurate, and I think Canadians are smart enough to recognize that Poilièvre will bend the knee for Trump. He played his Maple MAGA card too hard. And let's face it, the vast majority of Canadians do not want to be anything but Canadian. We don't want to be Americans. If we wanted to be Americans, we'd immigrate.
Right. We have that option.
It's
assuming they would have us.
It's like an hour south of where I am right now. Just right down Bank Street. It's right there.
Yep. So, one of the things that mattered, or that's going to matter for the upcoming election, is what the ballot question will be, right? And was it going to be affordability or something else? Now, Pierre wanted affordability in making it a carbon tax election really badly. But that's not what he's getting, and we told you that a while ago. So he may want that, but he's not going to get that. Nope, Trump around. So what would be dangerous is if wondering what we're going to do about Trump or handling Trump became the number one topic of concern. Well, according to Nanos polling, that is exactly what happened over the past 6 weeks or so. Concern about Trump went from being about 2% in terms of national concern to national concern for 20% or so, and is now the number one concern. Unfortunately, Pierre has also shown us over the last 6 to 8 weeks that he just can't pivot. And Pierre is also helped by the fact that there's a certain amount of his base that really likes Trump. So there's only so much full-throated he can go on that issue. So he's a little hobbled at this time. Now, this data is showing that Canadians already believe what their image of Mark Carney is, at least, to be more qualified than what they know of Pierre Poilièvre after 20 years of seeing him in action.
Yes. And action being a very loosely used term there.
After seeing him in action
Yes.
Or inaction.
Inaction.
Inaction as an all in
20
one word.
years, and he has one piece of legislation, and it was struck down because it was so pathetically bad.
Yep.
20
Only one
years.
passed. He introduced
One.
about 5 or 6. 5 never made it past the second reading, and the one that did pass was struck down and gutted, and cost his party an election.
Mm-hmm.
So, yay! Are you in awe of the leadership? So, he can't pivot, and his fetish subject is no longer the number one concern for Canadians. He's slipping in the polls
Rapidly. Precipitous drop.
Because, and again, as we told you, most of the aggregate numbers that we have been showing you always prompt for no leader in particular, which of course lets people put whoever they want, or Justin Trudeau specifically. But now the polls that are going to start coming out are actually going to be prompting specifically for Mark Carney, and those who have been testing that have been seeing that there could be a 3 to 4 point bump even higher than where the Liberals are now.
Well,
with this putting his name in, which then means majority territory.
I'm no fan of polls. I don't care for them. You know that.
I know that.
You know that. But I think in this case, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think in this case, what we are seeing is the general feeling across the country of what people would prefer. You know, when he was leading by 30 or 40%, whatever the number was, I don't recall, I don't even care. When he was leading in the polls by a large margin, it wasn't Pierre Poilièvre that was leading in the polls. The Conservatives were leading in the polls because they weren't Justin Trudeau, as evidenced by what just took place. The polls have completely flip-flopped. They're the other way around, and it's all because Justin Trudeau has stepped down, and there's a new prime minister designate in power. Well,
but even Justin Trudeau's personal numbers have gone up 12 points in the last 6 weeks.
Yes, because of his speech recently about how we are going to stand up to anybody who deems us an enemy by trying to debilitate us financially, economically.
Yep.
And that's what Trump wants to do. He wants to destroy our economy so he can annex us, but he doesn't need any of our minerals, our water, our lumber, our oil. He doesn't need any of that, but he wants to annex us so he can take that.
Particularly our oil and our potash that he only wants to tariff at 10%.
Yes.
He's telling us where to hit him, Canada. He's telling us where to hit him. Now, the other little bit of and then in that polling data, you know, on all because they compared 20 characteristics, and those that are positive, it seems that Mr. Carney comes out way ahead of Mr. Poilièvre. And then when he was asked, you know, is there anywhere where Poilièvre is in the lead? Well, he says, well, not really, but there's some ties on stuff like, you know, cares about me and understands me and whatnot. Well, again, after 20 years of Poilièvre, there's that. But if Mark Carney presents a little bit as a banker with a heart, which he is, right? And again, as much as the Conservatives want to paint him as this elitist guy, because yes, I mean, as a central banker, he does get to rub shoulders with the global elite. But he's a boy from Fort Smith, Northwest Territories.
Correct.
He's a everyday person who made good, who took all the advantages and opportunities that Canada gave to him, and then was able to go out and conquer the world with that. And now he's coming home. He wasn't. They can't even do the trust fund baby thing.
No,
with Carney that they were doing for Trudeau. Right? Carney is an everyday Canadian kid that went out and made good.
Worked his butt off.
Right?
Chief.
So on his ability, he will be able to talk like a human being about experiences growing up as a child, or, you know, being able to relate to what it is to, you know, live somewhere where prices are high, right? Or a food price can spike, or like right? He's not going to be Ignatieff. Now, he is not the guy that lights up the room when he speaks, and That's one of the comment that you keep on seeing on TV. It says, well, he didn't actually light up the room with his acceptance speech, and it was a little dull and boring. Sometimes I'm like, yeah, but you know what? Maybe that's what we want right now.
I think that's what's needed.
We don't. We have a lot of people. We've had a lot of people in our noses with a lot of personality.
Mm-hmm.
Pierre is a lot of personality, right? Maxime's a lot of personality. The convoy people were a lot of personality. Trump is a hell of a lot of a personality.
Yes.
Right? All the people, the Kevin O'Leary's, whatnot, like as a person. We got a lot of personality and performance. Like, it's actually Stephen Harper's words coming back to haunt Pierre Poilièvre. The steady hand on the tiller. Remember when Harper used to complain, it's not time to change now. We need a steady hand on the tiller. Well, to quote Stephen Harper, it's not time to change now. We need a steady hand on the tiller.
And we certainly have that with Mark Carney, Prime Minister designate.
So on those metrics, Mark Carney has the only way is up. Was the title. I guess cares about people like me. I guess, well, he's a banker and conservative me was elite. Wait a minute. You played hockey? Oh, you remember sharing your lunch this time? Or you did a bottle drive? You did, whatever the things that he did. Oh, okay. I'm listening. I'm listening to what you have to say, Mr. Carney.
I saw a TikTok recently, and I'll see if I can find it to show it to you because it's interesting. It's about a guy who grew up with Jeff Poilièvre. And I call him Jeff because when he knew him, that was his name. It was Jeff. He grew up with him. He played minor hockey with him. And then one day at hockey practice, the coach said, we'll refer to him as Pierre from now on. Nobody knows why. But legitimately, he was Jeff and then became Pierre. And this guy has some interesting things to say about it. I'll see if I can find it for you.
All right. So, yes, there is a chance that, people see Carney and he doesn't live up to whatever expectations they had from somebody like that, and he could drop a few. But if people are pretty much decided, on economics, we know that he's better like this, and it's just on how can he relate to me.
Mm-hmm.
People also have an expectation of how well a banker might be able to relate to them. That bar is low.
Very.
So Mark Carney doesn't have to do all that much on that metric. Right? If he's able to speak to the issues with a minimum of competency, he might be overwhelmingly exceeding expectations. Oh my God, I didn't know a banker could speak like that about what it's like to be a single parent. Right? And he is tapping into that. He has mentioned a couple of times of having some programs specifically for young Canadians who are having trouble getting their start in life. Because I'm sure there might have been a time he was getting his start in life.
Mm.
Right? As a boy from Fort Smith originally and then grew up in Edmonton, I'm sure his first 1 or 2 years at Harvard might have been financially interesting. Right?
Oh, yeah.
Just because he had the opportunity, does it mean that the ability to pay for it, I guess, wasn't a struggle? Right? So, I mean, we are going to find out more about him over the course. But this polling data is very much in his favor. And this one from Polara, I'm very happy they did it because it's not just a straight number. Which party would you vote for? It's like on these metrics, on these characteristics, these things that matter, that are important. How do you perceive these two in a head-to-head? Again, choosing among your alternatives and not comparing to an ideal, right? This is some good data. It adds a lot of color and texture, and it kind of explains why it is that the Conservatives may be panicking and why they're adopting the full-out bazooka character assassination strategy on Carney. Now, with that data, there is other data still that has come out, and very, very positive. The first one is from Leger, which last week had a very interesting blip because 2 reporting periods ago, well, I'm not sure if it's last week exactly, but the previous reporting period, but 2 reporting periods ago, Leger was seeing everything narrow, and it was seeing Conservatives +3 lead over the Liberals. And then last week, all of a sudden, it was Conservatives +13 on Leger. It was the only one that went really strong the other way. Everybody else was still narrowing. Well, it must have been some type of blip, because the Leger numbers now, most recent one, have them at even 37-37. So since March 1st, when the last Leger numbers came out, the Liberals would have closed a 13-point gap to be literally tied. Nanos has Liberals at 35 and the Conservatives at 36, so the Conservative with a 1 point. And Ecos, Frank Graves, has the Liberals at 41 and the Conservatives at 36. So Liberals leading by 5. So with these types of numbers, it is quite likely that next week the seat count numbers will intersect Sunday on the polling aggregator. So when you have numbers intersecting showing that the Conservatives are no longer projected to get the most number of seats, along with polling data that automatically shows that Canadians pretty much as a given see Carney as the better to handle the economy and handle Trump. And interestingly, Angus Reid had data before the leadership vote showing that Canadians even believed Chrystia Freeland was better to take on Trump by 3 percentage points than Pierre. Yes, that's Angus Reid that was showing that. So he was already losing the thing from inability to pivot for his performance for the last 5 or 6 weeks, that even Chrystia Freeland pulled ahead of him on ability to handle Trump. It's like they must be screaming at Conservative headquarters, and that might, all this data altogether might explain why it is that Doug Ford chose now to endorse Mark Carney. Because all data seems to be pointing, for the moment at least, that the entire federal Conservative movement is on a slip and slide down to irrelevance. Such a shame. You hate to see it. I mean, it couldn't have happened to a more dour and sour and obtuse group of people.
I found the video.
Well. Okay.
I found the video. It's a couple minutes, but we don't have to run the whole thing, but I do want to run a few minutes of it because it's interesting. And the riding, this is Mindapore, which is in Calgary. The MP for Calgary Mindapore is a former friend who has literally swallowed the Pierre Poilièvre line with the hook and the sinker and the bobber. Watch this video.
You see that kid right there on the top left? That's me. Long time ago. Now, who wants to guess who's standing right next to me? On my right. That kid with the hairdo. Go ahead and guess. You give up? Okay, I'm going to tell you who it is. That would be Pierre Poilièvre. That's his name right there on the team roster. So, the reason I'm bringing this up is because this kid who I used to know, he could conceivably become the next Prime Minister of Canada. Which usually that would be like, oh wow, someone I grew up with might become like a world leader. That's great. No. He's not the guy, and I'm going to tell you why. Now, I want to preface this just by saying, like, just because someone's a certain way as a kid doesn't mean that's how they're going to be for the whole rest of their lives. I'm certainly no one to talk, okay? I am the world's reigning champion of being an awkward, goofy kid who just couldn't fit in. But Pierre, where do I begin? Okay, first of all, I knew this kid initially as Jeff, okay? Then one day, shows up to hockey practice, and we get told from now on we are to refer to him as Pierre. No dead naming Pierre. No, he's not Jeff anymore, right? So there's kind of that irony of like, you know, oh, this is how you identify now, but we don't want to go back to the old one, even though that's what it used to. I don't know who in Alberta up and decides one day they want to be called Pierre all of a sudden. I think it's because it was the most regal sounding thing he could find, because even back then he was talking like we'd be like in the players box. We'd be talking about what we want to be when I grow up. He would say, I'm going to be prime minister. He would say that. So do with that what you will. Anyway, those ambitions had always been there. He'd always wanted to have that overt power, you know. I'm sure a lot of kids like to say that kind of shit, though. One day I'm going to be president. One day I'm going to be prime minister. Whatever it is. But Pierre was dead serious. Now, fast forward a few years, Pierre grows into being this guy. His yearbook quote, "What's truly horrific is the existing welfare state."
Which apparently is not real, apparently.
So Pierre had...
but I believe it.
Pierre had a reputation of being the kid who would write other kids' names on the board. Like, basically a snitch. You know, teacher would leave the classroom and you'd be late to class or doing whatever you're not supposed to be. He was the kid who... What we heard down through the grapevine is he was the one who would write your name on the board. So I don't know. I do know there's other creators here who did it, who were there for that. But I'm not going to comment further on that. But suffice it to say, that's really not the kind of character you want in a prime minister. The other thing to know is this kid grew up in Calgary like me, and if you grew up in Calgary, there's a good chance you like to wrestle. Well, that's something him and I both have in common as well. And I never got beat by a kid named Pierre. But I remember wrestling a kid named Pierre. We went to different schools, remember, so I don't think I put two and two together at the time that this was the same kid I would play hockey with, but I don't know. Sometimes I have the memory of a goldfish. Anyways, I was digging through some boxes. I found the old team photo I thought I'd share. I'm sure there's more that I'm forgetting to mention. But yeah, the kid I know, or I knew, you know, like the kind of, he's probably was a little nicer than the Pierre we know now. He's probably closer to being like high school Pierre. He's that kind of petulant know-it-all who always thinks he's the smartest guy in the room, but his ambitions kind of like outpace his actual abilities. That's Pierre, okay? That's always been Pierre. That hasn't changed. So, anyway, there you go. That's my story of.
Okay.
So we might have to excise that later because of the background music. I don't know. Yeah. We'll find out. It's not a big deal. Did you notice the Justin Bieber swoop that Pierre had? He once had a nice haircut.
Mm-hmm. He wants that, and I say, okay, I like that. I'm sorry. I just cannot help myself. I'm sorry. I'm being petty. I'm being petty.
It's fine.
All right. Because we're already 2 hours in, we will not do the Mark Carney thing.
No, we can
because
deal with that tomorrow.
his speech is about half an hour, and that will allow me time to actually go and get specific snippets and be a little more efficient about that. But before we go, however, this thing about we took various circuits and like went different things and explored different topics along the way, but the main through line here is that over the very, very recent hours, days, Doug Ford has managed to get a meeting with the U.S. Secretary of Commerce, where it seems might be discussed fast forwarding to move to the discussion on the actual trade deal itself, which would probably relieve a lot of us of a lot of headaches and this like constant whiplashing back and forth. Tariff, no tariff, tariff, no. And we still got the April 2nd stuff too.
Mhm.
Right, the counter tariffs and stuff like that. And those will be coming down during an election.
Oh, yes.
Right. So if we can keep everything relatively calm, at least till April 2nd for now, that would be nice. Now we're going to be, like I said, our counter tariffs on steel and aluminum are going to be coming on at some point, and we'll see if Orange Thrush has a freak out again. But at the moment, we're in as much as a calm holding pattern as is possible in a situation where somebody just wants to pull out the rug from under you for shits and giggles on any given day, or just because they didn't remember they did it the day before.
Right.
They thought they forgot they had to do it, and now they're doing it again. But things are moving there. Now, it could all be for nothing because, once again, right, the commissary secretary says something, but, it all has to go by Trump anyway. And dealing with Trump is like weather in Halifax. You don't like what he says, wait 15 minutes. He might say something else.
Yeah, I'd say more like St. John's, but yeah.
It does. Right? Don't like the weather, wait 15 minutes. We got new weather for you. But that's going on. At least there's some movement there. I guess, and again, that old expression, rather more jaw than war. So if they're in rooms talking, because they're not in front of mics making the markets go up and down. So stay in the room and keep talking. He also hip checks Daniel Smith.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And there's going to be more to that.
Oh, yes.
Because at some point, Daniel Smith is going to have oil is going to have, like, if Trump is just going to keep on escalating, oil is going to have to become a part of it. Now, the thing with these escalations,
it's an eventuality for sure.
Yeah, and the thing with these escalations that you have to understand is at one point it becomes moot, right? Doug Ford does the 25% surcharge on electricity. Okay, well, sorry. Trump and company do the 25% on steel and aluminum. We do 25% on electricity. You say, oh, fine, I guess we'll do 50% on steel and aluminum. Okay, we'll do 50% on. There's a point at which, like this, if they go, okay, 75% on steel and aluminum, you probably got the job done at 25. So adding 50 or 75, it sounds good, whatnot. It raises the prices, but it probably has no more additional effect. You've probably killed the industry at 25. You've definitely done it at 50. Right. So, there's only so much time. I guess you could keep on doing, okay, well, we'll do 100. Okay, I'll do 1,000. Like, at some point, it's not going to make a material difference. Once you can't afford it, you can't afford it. Doesn't matter how much more tariffing you do.
Well,
right?
We're just beating a dead horse at this point, right? It's like,
right.
Where's that line from The Simpsons? He's dead. Stop.
Yeah, stop. So, but it's just a stupid game, right? You can't. There's only so room legitimate for escalation. You can escalate the number, but it's like once it's not affordable, escalating the number has no additional benefit. Right. So it's a play you can use once or twice, especially when you're starting at 25 and you say you're going to double. If you started at 1%, maybe you'd have a couple more escalations to go before you got to 10%. When you start at 25, it's like when you show up and you're screaming at a volume of 11 and something bad happens, how do you get to 12?
Mm-hmm.
Right? You got to leave yourself some room to go. Always in a negotiation, you got to leave yourself some room to go. So all that's happening, and then goes on TV and endorses Mark Carney. Is having a meeting with Mark Carney before having that meeting. And we know that Doug and Pierre don't like each other. So sabotages Pierre and lays the groundwork in a context where conservatives, probably in headquarters, are already pointing fingers at each other for the free fall. As they say in French, ils se mangent la laine sur le dos. They're munching the wool off each other's backs. That's going to get uglier.
Never heard that.
Doug Ford, very inconveniently at this time, deciding to hip check Daniel Smith into the boards and sabotage Pierre, can only create more chaos and disarray. So if Doug Ford's master plan is to sort of blow up the Conservative Party of Canada and blow up that whole really weird movement, so that his type of progressive conservatism can be the dominant conservatism, he's creating a situation for him to be able to slide right in to the federal conservative leadership race.
And he's not truly a progressive conservative, but it'd be a huge step forward over the current crop of reformers, right?
Yes.
It'd be a huge step forward over them.
It would be. And it seems that, oddly enough, that if Mark Carney and Doug Ford are talking, this will be really convenient because there is no reason Mark Carney cannot follow the same election playbook as Doug Ford did.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he is the prime minister designate. Because once he will be sworn in, he will be the prime minister. I'm sure he will have lots of reasons to have meetings in Washington, D.C. during the election campaign. Again, don't hate the players, hate the game.
Mm-hmm.
Doug Ford made it possible and acceptable. So now you can't go say, hey, it's bad when liberals do it. But he's the prime minister. Well, he was the premier of Ontario. It's like, what? He was leading a jurisdiction too. Yeah, but it's so much bigger. So
it's irrelevant.
Because he's actually meeting. He might actually meet with the president.
Mm-hmm.
As opposed to the staffing advisor.
Yes.
Maybe. Right?
Possibly.
So, yeah. So, but there's absolutely no reason that he couldn't run that same playbook. This shorter selection campaign, a couple of days in the United States, looking very prime ministerial.
Yeah, he's definitely fighting for it. There's no question there. We got to wrap up, sir.
Yep. So, this is getting very interesting, kits and cuffs. So while the world is all going crazy and we're all like trying to hang on and get our bearings, at least for us domestically, there's stuff going on internally that has given us hope.
Indeed.
It's given us hope. We are not as polarized as down south. Yes.
Goodness
and
no.
there are some conservatives and liberals willing to work together here. So
be thankful for that, because that's how it's supposed to work, especially in a time of crisis. Work together.
Work together. Tout le monde ensemble. Do we have a show, Mr. Grizzly?
We do indeed.
All right, kids and cubs, that's the end of this episode of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. We hope that you love listening to us because we love making this for you. Remember, sharing is caring and word of mouth is priceless. So please tell your peeps and poops all about this, all about us, I should say. Oh boy. If you would like to make sure that you do not miss an episode, you don't have to, thanks to the Ray Girl. If you scan that QR code that has just appeared under my chin, right there, that will bring you to our pod page, podpage.com/thetruenortheagerbeaver with a hyphen between each one of those words. And when you click on subscribe, when we have something fresh off the bandwidth, it comes directly to you. If you'd like to help us in other ways, for example, by subscribing to our YouTube channel, that would help us a lot with the algorithm. Surf on down True North Eager Beaver Media on YouTube, and Kit Elaine and Kit Cassie would very, very much approve of you clicking our like, share, and subscribe buttons, because it helps us. Thank you so much for that. If you would like to help us in another way, for example, financially, because we do incur some costs to bring the show to you, well, we do happen to have a tip jar, and we do very gratefully and graciously accept enthusiastic expressions of encouragement from our kids and cubs. So that QR code that's by Mr. Grizzly's head will bring you to our coffee page. That's coffee spelled ko-fi.com/eagerbeaver, all in one word. And there you will find our tip jar, affectionately called the Emergency Hydration Fund. And if you drop a little bit of coinage in there, well, maybe I'll be able to get myself a cup of hot chocolate, and Mr. Grizzly will be able to get himself a nice hot cup of coffee. Or, hey, St. Patty's Day is coming.
Pint of Guinness.
An opportunity for some Guinness.
Pint of Guinness on Saturday. I know St. Patrick's Day is on Monday, but I'll go out and have a pint of Guinness on the Saturday, because it's Monday.
I happen to know a certain grizzly that's particularly fond of Guinness.
Yeah, that would be me.
Just subliminally putting the message out there to the kids and cubs. Just subliminally.
Monday is the feast of St. Patrick.
Yes, indeed. So any contribution there is greatly appreciated. Now, if you're not able to contribute financially, please do not worry, because the gift of your participation and attention are the ones that matter the most to us. And we love hearing from you. Write to us, truenortheagerbeaver@gmail.com, at Freedom Freckles. I'm sorry, if you're watching at home, Mr. Grizzly just showed me a screen image of a Ralph Wiggum.
Ralph Wiggum covered in measles. Freedom Freckles.
Oh, measles. Freedom Freckles. Ah, jeez. Oh, my word. So, yes, where was I? Oh, yes, we'd love to hear from you. So, truenortheagerbeaver@gmail.com is our email address, at trueeager at the Blue Sky Beaver Lodge, also at The Bad Place, at True North Eager Beaver on Facebook. And if you're listening on YouTube, right down in the comments section, you can leave us a little something. And if you would like to make a contribution to us financially, but bypass all the CE bros and the tech bros and all that kind of stuff, and want your transaction to be 100% Canadian, with the bonus of us receiving 100% of your donation, just do it through a simple email transfer from your bank. The transaction is there 100% Canadian, and hey, we like to do that at this time of day, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, this time of the year, this time in history, support Canadian. So that's a good way to do it. Bypass PayPal, and you get to support your favorite beaver and grizzly while giving your good old Canadian bank some business. It's win, win, win. All right, because democracy is something that you do, kids and cubs. There's a liberal leadership race in the province of Quebec. There will soon be a progressive conservative leadership race in Prince Edward Island, and soon there will be one as well in Newfoundland and Labrador for the Liberals. So please keep your eyes and ears peeled for those. And in the meantime, if you would like to engage in a little bit of letter writing, would be a good idea right about now to send letters to your MPs, particularly if they happen to be Liberal, NDP, Green, or senators of any stripe, as many as you can, depending where you are, asking specifically that someone during this election run on changing our media ownership laws as a matter of protection against foreign interference. So maybe something like for starters, because we might not need a law to do that, but for the publications that do benefit from Canadian government subsidies, maybe a change that you can only qualify for them if you are Canadian owned, and then changing the law not allowing majority non-Canadian owned media in Canada, so that Canadians can get Canadian news from Canadian people who want to tell Canadian stories with the best interest of Canadians at heart.
Indeed.
Best way to get that issue on the ballot is to start writing letters right now.
Get in there.
Flood the phone lines.
Get in there.
Flood the emails. Letters, type them, whatnot, print them. Handwritten letters are really effective because for them, it's like, ooh, somebody put some time and care into this one. They mean it. But however you do communicate, put it on the ballot. You want Canadian media to be Canadian.
Yes.
Let's make it happen.
To see that again. Very much like to see that again. Yeah.
Group of dedicated people. That's all you need. Right now, I'm seeing there on the eyes 2,112. If each one of us wrote one letter, yes, and let's say we each got a friend to do that, that would be.
And they'll tell two friends, and so on, and so on. Was that a Breck? Breck? You remember that commercial? Was it Breck shampoo? It was a shampoo commercial.
Yeah, it was a shampoo. It was no. Oh, I can't.
Your hair smells terrific. Was it that one?
No.
Body on Tap. You remember Body on Tap? That was a shampoo with 1/3 real beer.
Oh no.
Well,
I don't
here's the
remember
thing.
that one.
If you, this is no word of a lie. If you open a can of beer, pour it into a cup, let it go flat. When you're in the shower, pour it over your head. I'm not joking. I'm dead serious about this. Let it sit for about a minute, rinse it out. Your hair will be soft and luxurious like nothing you've ever known. Beer softens your hair. It's true. It's Body on Tap. It was a beer, 1/3 real beer in the shampoo back in the 70s.
Oh, wow. It was Fabergé Organics.
Yeah, okay.
Was it?
I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I think so. Kind of looking it up there. All right. So that's democracy is something that you do. So write those letters and, try to put that on the ballot because that's one thing that we can do. Mr. Grizzly, do you have some words of wisdom?
I do, but the words are not going to come from me. They're going to come from somebody else, and I'll show it to you in the Easter egg. It's you'll appreciate this because today, March 12th, 2025, things in the United States of America are changing for Canadians. You'll have to watch the video. It's a short little clip. It's from somebody who I'd like to see as a friend of the pod, and maybe we could get him on as a guest. He lives in British Columbia. He's just watch. I'll roll the credits and then we'll come back on the other side.
Okay, Mr. Grizzly, please cue the cock. You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters. CanadianTarot.com, their uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and The Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. We are grateful to the Crier Media Network for its support, Pete Jarvis for our artwork, and Paul Joseph Something for our opening and closing sequence music.
So let's we'll enjoy this short clip from a gentleman out of British Columbia, and I think it was Uncover the News who sent this to me. I subscribe to his channel because I like what he has to say, and get him on someday. This is really, really good.
Oh, yeah.
Will Canadians need to be fingerprinted to enter the U.S.? Maybe. Let's fact check this. Reports started spreading on social media recently that the Department of Homeland Security has a new form requiring Canadians to register their personal information with the American government. This is true. It is Form G324R. What's not true is that this is a new law. It's actually an old law that dates back to World War II. It's just never really been enforced. A couple of weeks ago, the American government announced, we are going to start enforcing it. In fact, they said they would strengthen it. Now, before we get into what the law actually says, it's worth noting that every country, every state, every city has got laws on the books that aren't enforced anymore. It's against the law to drive blindfolded in Alabama. You can't eat ice cream in Oregon on a Sunday. You can't pawn dentures in Las Vegas. That's a health law. You're not allowed to put hypnotized people on display in store windows in Oklahoma. And in Quitman, Georgia, chickens are not allowed to cross the road, not even to get to the other side. Back to this law, though. This law requires all non-U.S. citizens to go to a special registration center to be fingerprinted if they remain in the U.S. for more than 30 days. And your fingerprint will be sent to the FBI. They will also capture your signature, your photograph, and send it for processing in a biometric database. They want to know your date of birth, your place of birth, and it's not just adults. The way the law is written, all non-residents 14 years and older must register and be fingerprinted within 30 days of entry. Anyone over 18 years old must carry proof of registration at all times, and if you don't, you could be jailed. Upon completing registration, you need to have fully no proof of age of registration. However, non-citizens over 18 must carry this on.
Organized as American citizens with American ideals and determined to protect ourselves, our homes, our wives and children against the slimy conspirators and the outside hand of Jewish communism in our schools, our universities, our very homes.
It didn't start with gas chambers, but that's how it ended. So be ever vigilant, my friends. Be ever vigilant. I'll see you.